Yeah, hello everyone. Good to see you. Hello to Francesca and Erica. We're joined by Paul from Surrey County Council and also from Cara from Macro Group and myself. So we've got a good mixture there. We'll do intros in a second, but it looks like we've got a good mixture of corporate, council, and then me, a bit of public, private, and not-for-profit. So I'm sure we'll be able to help in some way. It's informal, yeah, with just a bit of a guide, giving us you a bit of insight, a bit of knowledge. So ask questions, and I'm sure you want to make it all about the businesses that you run. So please be as specific as you want and ask questions as you go. Don't hold back. It adds to the experience, and I'm sure we're trying to help in the best way that we can. So yeah, I have got a slide for this, but otherwise, you don't want to see a slide. You want to see our faces, really. So intro slides. Yeah, myself, one of the consultants for Always Possible. My background was first in finance in Lloyd's, where I did some of their corporate social responsibility, which is quite a long time ago. Pretty basic. Then I worked for two football clubs, their charities, which was Brighton Football Club and Chelsea Football Club. And they covered lots of different social impact because their audience was very diverse, different backgrounds, ages, races, religions, and stuff. So I run programs mainly for sort of 19 plus. Then I worked for a company doing tech for good, which was good about trying to equip people with tech or learn the skills of tech. And then I've been running Startup Street, which is my own thing, for a few years now, and that's all about trying to help people try and start businesses, learn the skills and mindset for doing that. And then the other thing I've been doing is social impact, because I've done it all the way through all those different roles. So I think I could be pretty well equipped to try and help in lots of varied kind of roles, but it all comes down to, did you make a difference and can you prove it? So Paul, do you want to do an intro, who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi. I work for Surrey County Council. I'm attached to the transformation unit, which sounds very grand, but it's not. A program manager, and in my portfolio, I'm working with the services across Surrey, developing everything from an enhanced social value policy and procedures to the social value marketplace. Also a couple of IT projects. Transformation is always to do with that. Looking at a bit of AI, developing community activities, and the best way to encourage asset-based community development with both our teams and partners. I'm also supporting, I've seen Erica's with me, one of my colleagues, the voluntary sector, the faith sector across the communities director and public health. Oh, and I've also involved in social value evaluation, including SVROI, and testing a few platforms and approaches to that, and theory of change and things like that. So yeah, there we go, wrapped up.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, give us a little bit of an insight, obviously, in a moment about the social value marketplace, which could be the community marketplace.
Yes.
You're already rebranding.
Well, it's got to happen. Got to happen.
Brilliant, nice one. And Cara, over to you.
Marvellous, thank you, and happy Friday, everybody. So I am the social value manager for Macro Group, which is the facilities management company that looks after Surrey County Council's portfolio of buildings. So what that functionally means is that, where Surrey has had certain social value requirements put on us as a contractor to Surrey, I'm the one that makes sure that we're getting all of that delivered. I'm interacting with our supply chain and with the community to try and do the best for Surrey and its residents and the council at large. In terms of my background, I come from kind of a sustainability side. So I started off in kind of carbon accounting, but I'm now accredited by Institute for Social Value. I've been doing social value for about 10 years. And yeah, very keen that we support as the bigger businesses in the space, that we support the VCSEs that aren't as resourced and ultimately have so much more to give to the local communities they work within. So thank you for having me.
Nice one. And your job title is Social Value Manager. Right?
Yep, that's me. That's what I do.
Okay. All right, brilliant. Okay, well, let's us guys are trying to give you a bit of guest speaker kind of info. Yeah, maybe a good chance just to get a quick intro to you guys. Just sort of tell you what you're doing, what you're trying to get out of it. Francesca, do you want to quickly go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Francesca. I'm one of the co-founders of Roots for the Future, and we bring people together in their communities to get the best out of their green spaces. And we do that through community tree planting. We help to run a community garden with our borough council. And we also offer ecotherapies, so using nature to heal people both physically and emotionally. And that's through mindfulness in nature or more deeper forest bathing, so taking people into the woods. And if you've never done forest bathing before, I highly recommend it. It makes you feel amazing. So we work quite closely with Waverley Borough Council and Godalming Town Council. We quite recently got some funding from Surrey County Council for some work with unpaid carers, so helping them to get outside and use nature to make them feel better, so that they can continue to care for their loved ones. And we've always wanted to kind of deepen our social impact contract with the public sector. So this is a really helpful webinar for us.
All right, brilliant. Good to hear. And Erica.
Hi everyone. So I'm Erica. I work within Surrey County Council. Still quite new to post. Can I still say that? I started in September. So I am, the official title is I think about this, voluntary sector and community partnerships lead. So working within the VCSE and faith organisations across Surrey. Kind of main role is looking at the organisations that we provide funding to. And one of the kind of core things we've been looking at recently and will continue to do is looking at their social impact. And I think, as you said, Carl, like, how do they have impact and how do we measure it? So that's probably my biggest interest today is, you know, the voluntary sector are doing so much, but how do we actually measure that and demonstrate that? And I think with times where funding's getting tighter and tighter, you know, it's going to be an asset to be able, for me to be able to support them to deliver and show their social impact and lasting impact.
Yeah, nice. Okay. All right. What I'll do, I'll share my screen and then bring some slides out. I know, Paul, you're actually off today, so thanks for joining. So obviously we'll start with you and we'll go from there. So intro's out the way. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Is that right? Good, good. Okay, yeah, so that's all we're here for. Obviously the Social Value Act changing. I mean, it's good to have the Social Value Act, and we'll reference that. But like we said, it's, you know, it's actually all the actions and doing and, you know, the real life-changing stuff and how we go about that to best serve our communities. But also, we need funding to do it, and we're always going to need funding to do it. So let's get really good at that. So I suppose that's a little bit of where we're trying to aim more of the session. Yeah, intros. So we just went through those. Obviously, you can get copies of the slides as well. Here's what we're looking to try and cover. We'll start off with Surrey Community Marketplace. So Paul will do that in a second. You might have already used that before, or it could be something that obviously could be really important to you moving forward. So Paul, give us a little overview of that. Paul, if you need to share your screen or anything, if you're happy just to talk about it. Then we'll have a look at considerations when aligning social impacts, whether that's to, you know, supply chains or partnerships, funding bids. So we'll look at the sort of considerations that we should be doing when or best for us. Evidence in measuring social impact. Yeah, it's good to hear, you know, theory of change and, you know, social return on investment already mentioned. So we'll look at those, and plus we'll try and give you a little bit more depth around them. Then we'll have a look at building stronger partnerships and networks, because, you know, particularly more recently with funding, you know, consortiums and partnerships seems to be getting a lot more funding. So we'll have a look at that. Innovative funding streams. So we'll look at maybe some non-traditional funding streams, which I think could be really, really helpful. And then corporate collaborations. You know, what's the best way to work with corporates? You know, they're really helpful. They're really good. And probably it's the only way that we can kind of scale sometimes on trying to help people. So that's the idea around what we're going to cover. Ask questions as we go. So like always with any of these sort of like types of programs, you have to give definition, don't you? Whether we're really going to quote this all the way through, but here's the Social Value Act definition. Voluntary community and social enterprises, when they're bidding for public funding contracts, they need to demonstrate basically their services, how they're going to deliver the wider social, economic and environmental benefits beyond financials. So meaning actively showcasing the positive work that they can do for individuals, communities, the environment, which will allow them then to get public funding into their organisations, and hopefully you'll be able to help job creation, skills development, community engagement, and environmental sustainability. So there's a definition. I thought it was a good place to start, just sharing the main parts of what the Surrey County Council social value policy is. I'm sure Erica and Paul can just reel this off by heart. But these are the main areas that Surrey County Council are looking to do. And it's always good to have that in the back of your mind when you're putting programs together and strategy. So there they are: health and education inequalities, so promoting diversity and inclusion, promote interdependence, health and empower independence through inclusive services, unlock talent, opportunities for underrepresented groups to thrive in work, think local, so support local businesses and sustainable economic growth, tackle climate change, carbon emissions, and towards net zero, and invest in green future, so enhancing biodiversity and rewild local spaces. So that's the overall arching policy. There's a lot behind that. I've included the link in there as well. But it's always worth just referencing when you're thinking of coming up with a new program or an existing program. Okay, so the Surrey County Council Community Marketplace. This is where I'm looking for Paul to kind of give us an idea about what it is, how it come about, and how potentially you might want to use it moving forward. Paul, over to you.
Great stuff. So I don't know where to start. So we'll call it the marketplace for the moment. We are hoping to make it the community marketplace. We've got some challenges. We wanted to call it the Surrey Community Marketplace, but it kind of, our reach kind of nibbles into Sussex. So we need to be a bit careful about how we brand that. So we're having discussions with partners to say, you know, is this the right name? But it in essence won't change. So for those that don't necessarily know what the marketplace is about, it's effectively a collaborative space for organisations across private, public, voluntary, community, faith, the VCSE to kind of collaborate and communicate, and effectively anyone working towards that kind of enhancing social, economic, environmental well-being across Surrey and, I'll put in brackets, Sussex. The platform should help facilitate that. Primarily, it stemmed from our obviously procurement and contracts team. All our contracts have been for many years had a social value element to them, and I think I'm pretty sure everyone on the call will know what that means. There's, you know, a certain percentage of the contract value the private companies or the, you know, the organisations that are got that contract must also satisfy like our social value policies. So that could be provision of laptops, it could be volunteering time, it could be maintaining buildings, it could be handing out windows, you know, it could be anything. So as part of the procurement process, an organisation would submit both a value that's worth in their view, and they've got to evaluate that themselves and justify it, but more importantly meet the criteria in our policy, so literally point to where their organizations align with our ongoing strategies and say, well, this is where we can contribute. So I think I mentioned earlier, we are reviewing that policy and processes. You know, the headlines won't change. They might get expanded, and we might zero in on certain elements. As with everything, you know, the council's finances aren't, you know, infinite, and so we're looking to better understand our own services social value, our partners' social value, our VCSE partners' social value, so we can see where the gaps are, really. You know, it'd be great if we can potentially focus more on public health or on, you know, in certain areas. We're going through that process now. We've got so much data, as you can imagine, as a council, but it just sits there, and, you know, actually getting all in one space and understanding it and getting that interpretation to give to you know, our elected members and decision makers, all that information in a concise way for them to make informed decisions and provide direction isn't the easiest thing to do. But again, as part of transformation, we're looking at, there's a new resident insight unit or resident intelligence unit been set up with some really smart people that can do whizzy things with data, and then pump out at the end going, da-da, this is all the information you need to make this happen. And I meant to make it happen. That's that kind of our branding across Surrey for community and customer interface at the moment. And hopefully, if you look on the current marketplace, you'll see that kind of make it happen branding. I won't go too much into it because it'll be a lot easier if anybody's interested goes in there and has a play and then contacts either myself or Erica or one of the other team. Again, going specifically back to the marketplace, our contractors, just the function is they will post what they can do, as an example, and then these voluntary organizations, partners can go on there and say, oh, actually, I need that service, product, whatever, and they kind of not bid for it, but just say, I'm interested, and then the two hook up through the platform, emails, conversations, and we join them together, and it happens. And it really is that simple. On the flip side, any community, organisation, residents association, anyone at all, VCSE partner can go in there and post something they would like. So that could be, I would like some volunteers for summer. So for example, Francesca, if you needed some Surrey County Council volunteers or some volunteers from another part, you know, anywhere, you could say, I'm running 3 days in summer. Who would be interested in supporting in this? And then, you know, our partners, ourselves, everyone would go and go, actually, you know, that sounds really good. And then, you know, it just develops like that. It could be you need, I don't know, Wellington boots. Who's got wellies? You know, anything like that. So just as an example. And then our contractors get pinged any request. And if it's appropriate, so when you go in, you say what type of request it is, and then it gets logged, and the appropriate people, so if they kind of registered the same headline, so environment or training or skills, they'll get that email to say, can you help? We had a challenge, and that's part of why we're updating the marketplace itself, the platform, that those emails weren't pinging very well. So, but it's fixed now, and so hopefully it'll all be working. It was happening, but it meant that one of our team were manually doing all those emails. So you can imagine that was a bit of a challenge and not the best use of resource. But that's now fixed. We're also doing some other enhancements through the platform owner and looking at other platforms to see if there's a better one. There's a new national social value marketplace that quite a few councils and organizations are using. So we'll, you know, I'll be assessing that to see, you know, in the future, is that something we can do and be part of. Nationally, I think it's almost like that cooperative. You know, you learn from each other, you share best experiences, case studies. So that, you know, that could be something we look at. Very similar, you were talking about evaluation. I've been trialing something called the social value engine, which is an SVROI platform, big calculator, and also a couple of other SME consultancies looking at it, and again, that there's a couple of these computers around, calculators around, I'll say, and SVEs use quite a lot across the council. So again, it could be they've got a great network and we chat, and so we're learning from that as well. So that was an aside. So just to give a bit of an overview where we're going. So the relaunch will be probably towards the end of March, April, with the new name and the new functionality and all the better awareness. Going back to just the naming, one of the challenges, again, we've found, and I'd open this up to anyone who wants to jump in, when you say social value, a lot of people just don't even know what that kind of means. And I think we've all of us collectively, nationally, locally, we need to find a better way to make our residents and business partners understand what that means. We do, because we live it, but I speak to, when I go to my local and tell my friends about it, they look at me blankly until I start explaining what it means. So I think there's got to be some way of doing it. It's almost like that, what was it, pay it forward. I don't know if you remember that kind of enigma that happened. Let's call it that, pay it forward, or I don't know, but we need to kind of change people's understanding so they can actually get it, and then they'll engage in it more, and especially in the marketplace. And I think over the coming 6-9 months, that's going to be really key for us to get that awareness across Surrey, Sussex, whatever it may be, depending on devolution, etc. That's going to impact us as well. So people get it, use it, and actually start generating, more and more social value. I'll stop now because I've just done the download. So it's probably best if anybody has any questions. And Erica, obviously, Erica's really close to our VCSE sectors partners. If Erica, is there anything you'd like to add to that, please jump in, but I'll shut up now.
No, I think it was a good summary, Paul. Definitely. I think, like you said, the challenge is getting people to understand social value. They understand it when you said you explain it to them. And then I was just looking at the title of Sam's company and lasting impact. Don't worry, we're not going to copyright it, but it kind of says it a little bit, like something like that is how communities are going to understand it, as opposed to a fancy term as social impact. So it might be an exercise that we need to go through of just finding different words that represent social impact to one that, and then consult with the community about those different words and which ones they align most with, potentially.
Yeah, I agree. There is a national social value network. I don't know if anyone else on the call attends or looks at that, and I think I was just toying with it this morning when I was thinking about, because I'm going through the kind of technical name change elements right now. I'm going, right, okay, before I commit to this, is it really something I want to do? And I thought, actually, what, that might be a good forum to open it up nationally and say, right, guys, come on, are we happy with this? What's everyone's feedback? And just have a discussion around there, so get more councils and more better minds than myself, and not Erica. Erica knows what she but just get more people involved to say, how do we make this work better?
And it's like similar to what our immigration manager's been doing in terms of changing that language around immigration to sanitary seekers. There was a lot of consultation done around that, but actually the word just, it feels different, it feels nicer, it's more accepting of immigration, of immigrants themselves. So it might be an exercise like that, because sanitary seekers just sound so different to immigrants, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've used it, the Surrey one, I think it was last year. It was pretty easy to use, and you were kind of just putting out offers that you could potentially support with, and then occasionally you were getting a ping just to say that this was something that you might be interested in. So it's a definitely marketplace feel to it. It's very difficult to get any naming rights to things with like solutions, value, impact. they're very hard to actually get anything like that anymore. Francesca, I don't know, do you use it, or if you aware of it?
No, actually, this is the first I've heard of it, and I'm really excited about it. It sounds kind of like a matchmaking site, which is really brilliant. So I will sign up to that. I had a question about it, but so it sounds like there was a little glitch and you did have to manually trigger like linking people. But if something sits there for ages and nothing happens with it, does then somebody go in there and manually kind of have a look and see if they can match make?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's how do I say this politically? Social
Don't
values,
worry.
it has much more, is getting much more focus, and it's a hot topic now,
Okay.
thankfully, because we've internally been planting those seeds, shall we say, and highlighting it, and we've got some really key cabinet member support within the council now. So a couple of the cabinet members I kind of work directly with are very keen and very vocal and very focused on making this work, which is just fabulous. So now it's gone from a small project that kind of was going through the motions to how do we make this best. And I mean, like the marketplace and what we do internally about social value, to this is going to happen. This is, you know, big value, because you can imagine I mentioned the contracts. The value of those contracts is huge, and you know, roughly 10% is meant to be delivered in social value. Has it? We don't know. You know, that is the challenge. We don't know what's been done. We know a lot's been done, but we're not very good about shouting about it or sharing it or, you know, getting in the right way. So now it's going to be that, you know, the marketplace is going to be expanded. It's going to be monitored. It's going to be evaluated. So, and there's going to be that kind of link from procurement to contract management to social value marketplace to evaluation, and, you know, that circle will be complete. So, you know, it's going to be reported back and managed. So that's really, again, exciting for us, because, you know, again, financially, how much benefit can we gain from that? You know, preventative action. So, you know, you mentioned about, you know, taking people out into the woods. I love that. I'm lucky enough to live next to Leith Hill, so I walk my spaniel twice a day up and down the hill for like an hour each time. When I come back and it's just, you know, yeah, I'm a bit tired, but I'm covered in mud and wet. But you know what? It's great, and it just completely takes away everything. You just walk around, I can think, even when we think about work, but it's just in a different environment and it's good for you. So I'm so fully supportive of things like that. But that's preventative, you know, that's, as you know, and I don't mean to preach, but, you know, I'm getting exercise, I am getting mental relief, I am feeling better. You know, it's all those great things which will stop, you know, maybe me having a stress attack or me having something worse, you know. And so if we expand that preventative nature in the long run can save public resources through something really simple that we're not even going to have to fund as taxpayers. So, you know, the more we develop, it's better, you know, again, it's that upward circle and cycle. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, you can tell I'm quite passionate about these.
Yeah, we are hoping to become official kind of social prescriber, an organization that can be you know, referred to as a social prescriber. And the NHS is doing lots of work around researching that, and it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but you know, baby steps towards it. So yeah, that's definitely what we're hoping for. And the other thing I just wanted to ask quickly about, I mean, perhaps it's a devolution question, I don't know, but because one of the things that we really, it's very niche to what we're doing, so it's not kind of broad question, but one of the things that we have talked about for years doing is that when new houses go up, is instead of the trees that are planted as part of that new estate being an afterthought and plonked in very, very badly and then dying really quickly, is that we actually do the tree planting either as a, you know, social contracted organisation to do so, or we actually get the community together to plant trees on their new estate, and therefore they feel more of a sense of ownership for that tree and looking after the tree, what have you. So when, and I know that Surrey County Council doesn't look after housing, that's more at borough level, but with these like matchmaking, the services there, are you encouraging boroughs to get involved in it? Are you hoping that when Surrey becomes a kind of super county with devolution, that that might happen anyway?
Yeah. Oh gosh, a few questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Actually, no, that's absolutely great. So devolution wise, who knows? We could end up with 3 kind of governing authorities across Surrey and Sussex. It's all down, you know, you probably know it's down to population size. So generally a mayoral area is 500,000 to 1.2, no, 1.4, but it varies. But if you look at Surrey's 1.2 million, it kind of probably aligns itself to 2 if that happens. If you involve Sussex as well or other neighbouring boroughs, we don't know what we don't know, and it won't just be like Surrey's proposal. You know, the D's and B's might, districts and borough councils might come together and say, well, we can do this. There's so much more. We don't even know if we'd be granted it right now, so I can't comment on that. I think there would definitely be benefits for centralised planning. That's a personal opinion and does not reflect the opinions of Surrey County Council, just to put that in there, because actually ideas like that you just mentioned, fabulous. You know, at the planning stage, you know, that seems so logical, and from a community and social value perspective, getting the community involved in planting trees or rewilding or doing anything around that area, it's not just the environmental impact. As you say, you're building a community, which if you look at some of the new communities around Surrey and Sussex, you know, that's what it is. You know, you can't put a whole load of different people with different demographics and backgrounds and everything together and expect them all just to get on. You know, they need introductions, they need some galvanization, everything. You know, that kind of aligns. I mean, yeah, no, that was great. So yeah, I think going forward, it's definitely something to talk about. I would personally, I would get that kind of offer or suggestion up onto the kind of marketplace in some way. I would start having conversations. You probably know about Surrey's. We've got like 5 million trees or 10 million trees to give away. I'd speak to that team, you know, and say, actually, you know, when it's happening, can we get involved? You know, so and then that could be, you know, a way into different groups of communities for yourselves. I mean, you may well be doing it. I'm just thinking out loud. But also they will have internal conversations and external conversations and D's and B's. You know, we do all talk. We're not completely separated, and we are quite close to the D's and B's anyway, at different levels. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
really?
sure.
We've got a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah, just also wanted to jump in just from a corporate perspective on that case, because when in a previous life I was in construction and that kind of house building space, and they have their own social value things to add, and if they knew that you were available, they would bite your hand off. Like, I can tell you this straight away. And if that wasn't the house builders, it might be the planners that they get, or the consultant architect. There are loads of people out there in the value chain that would love that offer. So I think this could be something absolutely fantastic. So yeah, please do this, please.
Great, thanks for the encouragement.
Erica, did you still have a question?
Yeah, it was a question as such. It was a couple of comments, really. First of all, I've definitely seen forest bathing around Surrey County Council emails, and I think it is something that we do at the council. I haven't done it yet, but I've definitely, the grounds at Reigate are absolutely beautiful, and I've definitely seen that it's something that that happens. Definitely agree with, you know, the benefits of it, and, you know, so many benefits, more than probably what society even sees, and agree with Paul about that preventative measure. And then back to the marketplace, I think part of the problem with the marketplace is exactly as you said, Francesca, people knowing about it. I think it's got so much more potential, doing a bit of a marketing campaign, or even like myself, once it's ready to be out promoting that to the VCSE. Part of what you showed, Carl, about our values and some of the things, local businesses. There's so many benefits for the marketplace, and people would use it, but do people know about it? And I think that is the biggest question. That was just a couple of my comments as I was thinking as you was all speaking.
That's great, Erica. I've just added you to the roadshow starting in April.
Perfect. Amazing. There you go.
VIP. Yeah. Cara, yeah.
I was going to say, just to jump straight on that, I completely agree. Erica, it's all about people knowing about it. I didn't know about it until I happened to, I think it was the 6th or 7th person in Surrey that I spoke to knew about it and told me about it. And I think you can really leverage from a Surrey side the people that you have on your books to get it through the supply chain, because I, before Christmas, had a company that wanted to donate a door to a charity because they provide roller doors and that sort of thing. And I had no idea who could benefit from that. The marketplace would be the perfect place to get that really specialist stuff, because I think a lot of charities wouldn't necessarily know things like that are available. But yeah, so I will be requiring all of my suppliers to register on the marketplace, and I think that would be reasonable of most of your contractors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't just have to be our contractors. Anyone can go in there that lives, works, wants to be in Surrey. It could be from Scotland, anywhere. If they want to, come down here and do stuff, great.
Yeah, it's really helpful insight. And obviously you can explore what else is happening there. You've got buyers and sellers on there, like any marketplace. I think strategy I always went with when I was working for the charities, because it always comes down to funding, was we always went after bids that we felt we could get on our own. And obviously, we'd scan to see whether that was, the right type of bid for us. And then we'd look at consortium ones. We'd go in on partners. And then the third strand, we'd go after basically people that had already got the funding to offer very specific solutions. And that just made me think of you. You have a very specific solution, potentially someone that's already got the funding or the contract to do it, which means you don't have to do all the bid writing. That was always our kind of like strategy. Go where the funding already is. We've got very specific solutions to help them do it. Or consortium, if we felt it was a bit better, if we weren't totally confident on the bid, and then we'd go for singular bids as well. Always good when someone's already done the bidding for you. All right. And Paul, you said you had a load of data there, so you're just going to sell all that and make your money that way, right?
Oh, no, well, can't possibly comment on that. That over to another colleague, Catherine, who's, as I said, got a much more experience than me. As a program manager, I kind of know bits of everything, but always go to those who are the experts and know what they're doing, because that's as you know, that's what we do. Pull things together. Let other people who know what they're doing get it done.
Look, I know you're actually off today, so if you don't want to, continue with the call, obviously we're not going to take offence.
Yeah, no worries. I've actually got another meeting at 1 o'clock that I signed up for, so that's fine.
But no, we appreciate that. Obviously, if it's okay to share contact details.
Absolutely. Yeah. I put the link of the Social Value Marketplace in the chat for anyone. Brilliant. So
okay.
Yeah, fabulous.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Paul.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Well, what I'll do, I'll share the screen again. I'll get us back onto the areas that we were going to cover. So hopefully you can see that again. Here's a little glimpse of the marketplace. That was the home page. And as you scroll down, you can see some of the things that you can get involved in. So just a little bit of insight into the marketplace. As we go through the next slide, so we can start off with considerations. What I'll probably do is just go through bullet points. We haven't got loads and loads of time. If you do want to ask questions, I suppose just be aware of how much in depth we can get into it right away. But obviously we could always do follow-ups. So if we start here, so yeah, I wanted to go straight into this. We've already chatted about some of these things already. So considerations when aligning social impact. Theory of change is the most accepted way to obviously clearly outline and break down really what you want to achieve and how you're going to make positive change or improve negative change. Everyone seems to follow the same structure for theory of change: inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and long-term impact. There's not many other kind of frameworks that people would use outside of that. So obviously, I think it is a go-to one, and it does make things straightforward as a high-level look about what you're trying to do when you're trying to align social impact, or align to funding bids, or align to corporate involvement. The next one, obviously, you're trying to anticipate funders' risks as well. I think that's always good, because it doesn't go perfectly to plan. So, I think that early sort of mitigation of we might struggle to do these certain things. Recruitment is going to be tough for this particular thing, or our ability to reach a broader audience than the one that we've got. It's good, I think, because you really show a realism and practicality to what you're trying to do, but also highlight your track record. What you're doing there is basically saying, look, we've done this before, and we know that challenges come up, and we've overcome them, and we've been able to actually deliver on what we promised. So I think you'll find that in funding bids, they're probably looking for experience or previous projects that you might have been involved in. And then you might be able to show it practically through like a basic risk assessment about how you're actually looking to actually implement this and manage the risk that would be involved. I don't know if anyone's got any sort of snippets they just want to add to any of those points.
I was part of, prior to this role, I come from the West Midlands, as you can probably hear. And I was part of the violence reduction unit in Birmingham, well, across the West Midlands, and took on the challenge of bringing some partners together, which you will know, Carl, how difficult it actually is, with how many years of austerity. And so it took quite a bit of time to get people thinking in a different way in terms of real partnership and putting in for bids. But some people probably never heard of a little place called Walsall outside of Birmingham. A place like Walsall has got no chance of competing with somewhere like Birmingham for big funds. So I was trying to get through to them that you're stronger together. That's how you're going to attract the millions to somewhere like Walsall. Anyway, cut a long story short, we put in 1.2 million bid to reaching communities for the big lottery. Still waiting for the outcome. It's been an ordeal, to say the least. I think it's over a year's work that's kind of gone into it, and still waiting for the outcome. Obviously, if it's not successful, year's work not for nothing, because I personally have learned a lot through going through that process. But some of the things that we did tackle absolutely was tackling it on the head, like you said, about recruitment issues, all of those things, putting it into a risk assessment, having a document that's going to kind of outlay timelines of doing things, and actually what happens if we don't stick to those timelines and how that can impact. But then also showcasing each individual organization's strengths and actually their 25-year background, and that they've always delivered. So yeah, definitely that's probably the largest bid I've put in and been a part of. So hoping and praying it is successful for the sake of Walsall and youth violence. But yeah, definitely, I think a lot of people, especially smaller organisations, fear being real in those applications, especially when you don't have necessarily that track record. But funders know what they're doing and will see kind of straight through that. So by just tackling it head on and saying how you're going to mitigate it is always going to make that application stronger, in my experience, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. Just on theory of change as well, without theory of change, you can't even consider going down the route of actually looking at the return on investment. You need a theory of change to be able to actually go through that whole experience of a social return on investment. Yeah, it's a good one. I think it's quite straightforward for everyone to understand if you're in that kind of space as well. A couple more for alignment. Yeah, if you can do this kind of like, place-based impact, you're going to know that area that you're in better than most, and particularly obviously if you're fulfilling, a local environmental project or something that is, increasing someone's well-being, for example. So you have that in-depth on-the-ground ability to showcase your knowledge of that through, demographics, testimonials, specific community needs. Doesn't have to be all hard data. It can be a lot of anecdotal, soft data that you've shown, the trends and the way the language that people are using, and aligning that with, funders' outcomes. They always have some kind of criteria on the, location and postcodes that they want to support. And I suppose you have the advantage of being on the ground and knowing that better than them. And then the second one there, like a social plan, basically a social value plan. So you kind of say, look, if this funding happens, here you go. This is how we would deliver that. This is the team responsible for that. This is how we're structured. This is who would do what. But again, just in that as well, you can highlight, if funding is received, we would recruit once funding, and expertise once funding would come into place, so, being realistic about, we're not going to do everything unless funding comes in, because, we can't commit resources and time to that unless funding would come in. And then maybe it's nicer just to be a little bit visual sometimes. So you might just have a little bit more, maybe of like a suggestion here is an infographic or some kind of high level diagram that might show the place, how you would be involved, how you add social value is always a bit more aesthetically pleasing, I suppose. Any comments, quick thoughts? Yeah.
So I joined a theory of change or social impact monitoring workshop that Sam had put on a couple of weeks ago, and so we've Sam would be pleased to hear that we're revising our theory of change because it's a tiny bit out of date. And one of the things that I really want to do is make an infographic of our theory of change. But would you say it would be better to put the time and effort into an infographic for social value action plan, or do you think they can sort of overlap?
Well, yeah. What do you think makes the most difference to the funding bid? Anything that shows, your plans, your impact that you could make. Why not have it for both? Yeah. Anything that makes the bid more appealing, I suppose, and easier to look at. Okay. I wouldn't restrict yourself to, and it has to go into this area. But yeah, nice and visual, makes it really clear and obvious what you're looking to achieve. I think is really good. There's some good tools out there, tools for that at the moment. Yeah, partnerships for added value. Like I said, you might think, look, we're going in for this as just our organisation, or can we actually complement others and increase the offer by, because the partnerships basically ensure that we're doing potentially a little bit more. It means that, we might not be duplicating with what others are already doing. And, it's a good way to start to show the value that you can offer, because if you're going in with, collaborating with others, the value is going to increase, the impact would increase. It might be several different impact now, but also it obviously evidence that, you have the ability to do it. I've done a couple of successful consortium bids, and we all brought something different to the table. You don't always get them, like funding, but it allowed me to definitely scale a little bit, but also have kind of like internal resources that I didn't have that one of the organizations had. So I'd also say there's always a way to show it, but overall you are adding more value. And then you're looking at, can you show beyond the delivery? What can people now do? What are people now feeling like? What has now been implemented? What's the legacy? What were the unexpected outcomes? Because there's always unexpected outcomes of this. So yeah, you might want to emphasize how beyond the program the impact could last. I'd say don't commit to like legacy programs that you don't have funding for. It's easy to start saying, yes, we're going to carry this on for years without funding. So yeah, be careful on the commitment to actually delivering legacy programs unless they were funded. But demonstrate that by doing this, there is the opportunity beyond. I suppose if they wanted to continue, or if there was funding models that would replace that, the change that could continue to happen. And then the last one on this one, which I think is probably one of the hardest ones. I mean, this one's in there really because if you are getting investors, and if you're getting social investors that are looking for projects that are delivering social impact or environmental, like reduction of carbon footprint or waste disposal or whatever that is, they're looking. When they're looking for the investment, they're looking to see if it can scale and grow. And the most appealing ones tend to have an element of technology in there. So if you are using anything, it can be something really simple with, just even the way you're collecting data or improving the way that people use a certain thing. They tend to be the ones that obviously attract a bit more investment, but if not, show innovative ways that you are be able to deliver your programs. I think it's always good for funders and investors to see that, because it might mean that beyond the funding itself, there's other opportunities to scale. And then I suppose just the one, I think I mentioned this already, that the multiple levels of impact that you might want to do. And Paul kind of mentioned it there, isn't it? You're talking about the forest bathing, you're obviously showing a community element to there of, bringing people together. Maybe, this forest bathing, is a sense of belonging to that community. But individually, like Paul, you're increasing, the amount of outdoor activity, reduction in travel, and then the environmental one, obviously, you're reducing carbon emissions, the amount of trees that are being planted. And again, I think you can lay it out that simply. And I think, again, that's always very impactful when you're trying to align yourselves to funding. If it's not relevant, then obviously, you might not think about putting all of those in. Any thoughts or snippets on those bits?
I just wanted to jump in and say, I think innovation can sometimes seem like it needs to be this big flashy thing. But I really resonated, Carl, when you were saying about how you treat data differently, or how kind of just the little things that make you more efficient or make your work more impactful, like those things really matter. And with the maturity of social value in these spaces, I think people are getting a lot wiser to the fact that actually the flashy things often don't deliver the benefit to the people that we're trying to actually engage. And again, this comes from a previous life where I managed a corporate foundation that would review these things quite often. And yeah, quite often it was the case of, well, we need a new boiler to facilitate this workshop that we do. Oh, and by the way, this is the incredible innovative workshop we're running in that space. And we were like, we're definitely going to give you a new boiler because that's amazing, rather than people saying, oh, well, we want to buy a million new, well, not a million, but like a bunch of new tech to be all interesting. We were like, actually, there's no evidence that's going to bring any real change. So yeah, that was just my 2 cents.
Oh, nice. Okay. We'll go into the next bit. Obviously, you can have all the slides, etc. Oh, sorry, there was one more. Measure and communicate value in monetary terms. It doesn't feel right. That might not sit well with you sometimes, being able to evidence what you do through numbers, but it will enable you to get funding. So you can do it in simple ways. Maybe you've identified that, through coming to this program, or by doing this certain type of activity, there's been a reduction in travel, or there's been a reduction in the amount of times that person has visited their GP. Again, in the social value banks that are out there, they will list wherever possible similar savings to what maybe you're trying to suggest. But for now, you might not have to go down that route. You might just say, look, we estimate, because the whole of social value and the social return on investment is an estimate. Yeah. Any return, financial return is still an estimate, a little bit more accurate. But remember, we are dealing with, the estimated return that this is going to bring. So you could include things like, as mentioned, there is overall, we're looking that people are visiting their GP, twice less through what we delivered. We can't claim for all of that. We played a part in it, and you're always trying to almost undersell the value that you did, but you're still trying to say, look, we have been a reason for that. So if there is a way to stick pound signs on things, funders deal in pounds or euros, and that does help conversations, and also just in the way people process stuff. A pound sign's a lot easier to see and understand how much value that is, or a number is a lot more easier to understand rather than anecdotal or soft data. So not always possible, but I think that really helps. And then stories, people, testimonials. Again, this might lend itself to infographics. It might lend itself for a 30-second video, some short content, and just think about how that aligns to the funding or the social impact that you're trying to actually achieve. But really powerful, and don't underestimate where that sits in your funding bid. Stories and narrative is one of the first things that you might actually lead on, because once you set that narrative and that storytelling, everything else you talk about within your bid makes total sense to them. They keep coming back to that story, that impact, that background, that narrative. Anyone sort of thoughts or sort of experiences of any of those two things?
Yeah, so again, kind of from a corporate perspective, I completely agree. I think monetizing social value, it was where we immediately jumped after the act because it was so tied to procurement. But again, with the maturation, a lot of people are questioning how reliable it is to be able to do that. That being said, like you say, when the people you're talking to speak in pounds, it's useful to also be able to speak in pounds, but it's definitely not as powerful without the narrative side. So they do definitely still need to be linked. And in terms of kind of accessibility, there are a lot more free tools out there these days. So you don't necessarily need to have somebody who knows how to conduct an SROI or how to access fancy data banks. You can find quite a lot of different things. I'm happy to share any of the ones that I have, or indeed that's another thing you can kind of go to corporates for. There are a number of charities that I've supported in helping them write bids and get that social value monetization right. So that's another thing to kind of ask for help for if you've got any opportunity to do that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm finding that more when I'm working with corporates. It's one of the things I've been able to do. I can deliver that social return on investment. I can put that together. I can put strategy for like the UN and Sustainable Development Goals. The corporates are steering away from, I'm now being a bit, grouping them all together. They don't really want to get down that route of showing their social return on investment. They maybe feel a little bit more uncomfortable with being scrutinized on numbers when it comes to social impact. There's a feeling we should be doing it anyway. It's our responsibility. We should be doing good. Whereas the non-for-profits, obviously they're thinking about funding, so social return on investment is probably a better place for them at the moment, being able to say, look, if you work with us, every pound invested is a £2.36 return. It's more of an accepted practice for the ways that they can measure what they do. So I don't know whether that's the same with you, Cara, or anyone else. Comment corporate staying away from social return on investment.
I think it's a mixed bag. It depends on the corporate. Some people are really, really leaning in to it because there are tools out there that show. I think the reason that some corporates are leaning away, in my experience anyway, is that there has been a lot of bad practice in the corporate space, people over claiming pounds. But again, that's kind of at the corporate level, and a lot of times when their foundations or, you know, the relevant kind of funding bodies are looking at, you know, whether or not they're going to invest or support a given cause, being able to say that, you know, this is the impact that we have in that sort of pound for pound metric is still quite powerful. So I think it is a bit of a mixed bag. It's also, and I don't know if this is necessarily massively helpful, but the UK is weird in its approach to social value and monetizing. The rest of the world doesn't really monetize the way that we do. And I think, again, as we're maturing as a social value industry globally and in the UK, we're starting to understand that you don't need that pound value. You can do more with the narratives, but it's really handy. It's a really snappy, like eye-catching way to get people engaged, as long as you have both, I think, the narrative and the pound value.
Yeah. Sam?
Yeah, just a quick reflection on experience. We did some work for West Midlands local authority, actually, around valuing some grassroots green space rewilding type projects and opening up access and stuff like that. And just to speak to that numbers thing, you know, we worked with some economists to model this with as high a degree of accuracy, drawing on the best research that we could. But it's quite interesting, relatively new space in terms of models to pull on, not very many of them. And we were getting some wildly different results than one or two other local authorities that also had done some stuff. And it's the ultimate aim of that piece of work was so the local authority could make a case to central government and to changes in administration locally, just about the value of what they're doing and whether it's repeatable, speaking kind of treasury language. But I think the important thing that we found was, like you say, Cara, it was about backing up a story that was being told rather than the numbers being the be all and end all. So yeah, and there are easier places to start. So within that, there was everything from volunteering right through to carbon capture, but the volunteering hours pretty straightforward, based on measurements and a minimum wage calculation. So maybe start with something that you feel quite confident on, and if you don't, and that can be a really good way to just add in some color and texture to a bid and start to chuck some numbers in there. But yeah, if it starts to feel complicated or it's a bit of a reach, it's more about the story that you need to tell, and that's a bit more of the debate that you can push forward, is like how good do we feel about these numbers? What else can we do to enable people on the ground doing this work to better measure their impact and stuff like that? So
yeah, nice one. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, if you have a theory of change in place and you're collecting data, if you choose to go to and do social return on investment, then you can. If you haven't got that in place, you can't even get to that point of social return on investment. So I suppose theory of change, if you've got it in place, you have a choice whether you go down that route or not. Okay, yeah, it looks like we've started to look at some of these. So we will try and go through as many as we can. I'm conscious of time. So yeah, there's no set way of capturing data and trying to measure it. So definitely, the soft and hard data, qualitative and quantitative data, case studies, testimonials. If you get any opportunity, try and look at, asking people the short term, medium term and long term. That's the only way potentially of capturing that kind of evidence. If you're trying to say, how long do you think this change would last for you? Would it be just for the program? Would it be 6 months on? Would some of these things you'd still be using or, having benefit from? Would it be a year? Would it be 1 to 3 years? So there's no, science behind it. It is just asking and trying to get some form of prediction. And then just keep going back to priorities, because you might start capturing stuff that, is that really going to have, a benefit to us? And wherever you can, go where the data already is. Schools, councils, whatever the type of activity you're looking for, go where the data is, and even a few simple steps in, like, procurement or something like that, just those extra additional questions when someone's starting to work with you could give you some of the data as well. Yeah, the frameworks that we talked about, their theory of change is recognised, and you had a whole session on that, so I'm not going to go into that. The social return on investment one, you can't do it without theory of change. To go into that now is too big a subject. You might think about how you've managed that. So again, laying out how it was collected, how you deliver the program, how it's enabled to deliver impacts could be useful. Even just showing like a little bit of the framework or the plan that you would use for them if you got the funding. So I think that's always a benefit. And then, yeah, there's for small amounts of money or monthly subscriptions, it might be worth looking at how you might collect these. I remember I purely used SurveyMonkey, the free version of SurveyMonkey, for probably about 3 or 4 years, and it did enough. You know, there's a lot of people-focused stuff, but it enabled me to capture beginning, middle, end, beyond. So you can, and also with SurveyMonkey as well, I was able to like send invites out for events and that kind of stuff, focus groups. So there's a way, you know, I know charities, and you know, you beg, borrow, and you do steal ideas. But yeah, there is tools that could be used that does make it a hell of a lot easier. And as I said, go where the data already is. Yeah, you might say, well, I think this is an essential one. You are, you know, building this impact alongside beneficiaries or stakeholders or supply chains. So, you know, you're asking them, you know, for you, big questions, you know, what does success look like? What are the, you know, expected changes? But also, if you've got a series of data that's coming in, it's going to strengthen and, you know, make your bid even more stronger by saying, you know, working with these different organizations, the beneficiaries play the most important part because, you know, they will help you build pretty much everything. Sound like a startup here, but that is, you know, the mindset from a startup, you know, build it alongside your customers, but this one is build it alongside your, you know, stakeholders, with your beneficiaries being probably the biggest one. Yeah, maybe those ripple effects are good as well. So, you know, thinking about there's going to be some outcomes that you do want to achieve, but then, you know, think about those 3 levels again, you know, the individual, the community, the environment. That's always a really good one, because it might enable you to put some pound signs to some of those savings or some of those impacts that could be happening. I've seen a few companies that are doing that in a really nice infographic. They're almost like showing a little an image of the village or the town that they're supporting, and then the infographic shows, you know, where these individuals are being supported, and it's an image and it's just a few bullet points, and it's almost like showing this little, you know, insight into how the impact's happening. I found those quite good, but again, that might just be my tastes. And there are some impact mapping tools that are out there. You don't have to use them. You can just stick to what you've got, as long as you're collecting it, but make it in the best and easiest way possible. And then, yeah, I mentioned this one already about that kind of like, are we still making change directly after the program, or did we make a change after the program and the activities we delivered? Are we still having an impact in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months? The resources to be able to follow that up in depth is hard. You know, you're a charity, you're trying to do your own thing, you're a corporate, you know, you've got business objectives. So the resource and time to do that is huge. So what you might do is a prediction from those people that are involved and the stakeholders that are involved, how much change do you think there's lasting in that? And then if you do have the opportunity, a focus group of a small number of people or stakeholders would probably suffice. I don't know anyone in the charities and, you know, social enterprise or kick space that has the ability to do that. And then, yeah, just one more, and then we'll have a look at these. Calculate what you're doing is public services. We've mentioned this a few times, but, you know, it has real relevance in there, and this is referring to your social return on investment again. every pound invested is, let's say, £3 into the community, you would need to go down that full route and probably work with an organisation that would be able to help you get to that point. But without collecting the data, using all your stakeholders, getting that input from beneficiaries and stakeholders, you can't do social return investment because you haven't got the tools and the data to be able for you to do that. This is always a good one, isn't it? Like, if we didn't do it, what would happen? I think that's always a good question. And again, it's trying to get, local insight, or who else is an option, a solution. And again, if you find that there's limited choice, or you found a particular underrepresented or underserved group, definitely that's a real powerful one for funding. Yeah, because you're offering a solution that potentially isn't there or very hard to do. And then, yeah, look, maybe the funders don't like infographics, I don't know, but think about who's seeing it and change it. Yeah, I really think that really helps. Your your beneficiaries aren't worried about all the the back office and the operations and project management and risks, and for them an infographic and a story and an event would be a lot better. Whereas funders, obviously they're strict funding criteria, and making sure you don't go over a certain amount of characters is very important when making social change. So know the audience, I suppose. Any thoughts on that? We were just having a look at evidencing and measuring. So everyone's kind of feel about that. Yeah, who wants to go, Cara?
Some really good points. Oh, sorry. I was going to say some really great points. That was it.
Okay, I'll take that. Cara?
No, I was going to say very much the same kind of as I have been. I think it sounds like a quite basic thing, but it's about the difference. And fundamentally, at least from my experience, social value is about how we create change, and that's essentially what all of these things support your narrative in. The counterfactual is, what's different if you wouldn't be here. Reporting to different stakeholders in different ways is helping different people understand that kind of narrative, and I think that's something people are really kind of ready to hear about, is that change factor of it. So yeah, similar to Erica, sounds great.
Francesca, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think so I used to work in international development, and there was like the £1 invested kind of stat that now I can't remember, I think it's £7 in return. And so I think something that we do a lot, because there's so much evidence out there about tree planting and more evidence about green space being a really good healing tool. So we do use other people's data a lot, and in terms of measuring the difference that we're making, so I mean, it's interesting to hear you say about kind of just using SurveyMonkey, but what I really want to do is perhaps work with an academic just to create a really quick, simple, like feedback, whether it's a form or something, an app or something, so that people can do it really, really quickly straight afterwards, and then maybe again a month later, and again, 6 months down the line. But then it's interesting also to hear you say that perhaps that might be something I could do with a corporate. I don't know, maybe that's one of the things I can do with this matchmaking thing, whatever it's going to be called.
Yeah,
on the
it's going to be, yes, it's going to be community marketplace at the moment.
So community marketplace.
Could change. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to get we do obviously try to measure our impact as much as possible, and I do have some funders want a report back, others don't, weirdly.
So good, right? When you don't have to report.
Exactly. Some just want a story, like you said, which is fairly easy. I mean, for us it can be really easy. Like one of the things that I said in my application to Surrey County Council is I did some work with some people who were in cancer treatment, and there was one woman who was clearly really unwell, and she had lost her hair and she was wearing a wig, and I kept my eye on her all the way through because she just seemed so very sad, which of course you can understand. And then at the very end, I saw her smile, like properly beam smile on her face. And I thought, wow, that's a really quick measure of making a difference to that person. And it may have only lasted, the afternoon, because obviously she's going through life-changing stuff. But yeah, there's little snippets of that, which are really, really easy just to recall quite quickly.
Yeah, like, from what you just said, SurveyMonkey, using Google Forms, all free, really easy to use. Obviously, you want to think about the questions you're asking, etc. Just on the academic side, there might be opportunities for funding with academic institutes that are looking to produce white papers or have impact. So yeah, it might be worth checking actually with like your local universities, because they're quite keen in areas like this to produce white papers, and you can apply for funding with them on these type of things, because they wouldn't be able to have access to beneficiaries and stakeholders and do on the ground like you. So that might be worth having a look at. Okay, conscious of time, there was one slide there. It was just 5 bullet points on building stronger partnerships and networks, but I'll leave that in as just a sort of an extra slide that you might want to have a look through. I just wanted to try and cover this. I won't go into loads of detail just because we haven't got time. But yeah, just some other options on funding streams. Funding's hard. Charities who don't run their businesses, or social enterprises that don't run it like a business, don't do well. So you have got to think of what additional funding streams could we have or we haven't considered. So yeah, maybe there's a little bit more around this, where there's sort of crowdfunding or just giving pages, or specific projects that we're saying we're trying to reach this target to help this many people. So that might be worth considering. I've seen it a little bit more on the rise. Social impact bonds, a little bit more in depth, but like I said, these are for investors that are looking to invest in projects that are going to have measurable outcomes in the environment or social impact. So again, might be worth considering, maybe just doing a few little searches to see, but you'd need to be quite equipped, as in have all of the resources to put those type of things into place, but it's something to consider. Corporate sponsorship, yeah, of course, that there might be opportunities where it's great when they give their time, and we love that, Cara. We love you giving your time. Okay. But when funding comes in from a corporate, it doesn't come with the additional levels of applications and reporting, not always, but that would come with public funding. And also, you're buying into us, as an organization. There's real opportunities there. And I think, Cara, you mentioned this as well about, when you see something, you're like, God, that's really good. We can't do that. We want to do that because we believe in it as already part of our social objectives or environmental objectives. So that makes sense for us to do that. I don't know if you want to just come in on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think bigger charities, national, international charities are massively overrepresented in corporate sponsorships, and I think by and large they have limited impact comparative to where I've been able to partner with local people. So I definitely think this is an area that we could really leverage. I don't currently have a solution for that, but I am working with a couple of different teams within Surrey to figure out how to make those connections happen better, because we don't know where you are most of the time. So I'm a global resource as well as a Surrey resource, and I can't be on all of our 50 different contract sites globally. Equally, we can't expect you guys to just turn up at every single office within a 30-mile radius of where you operate. So yeah, we're developing some things, but I think it's it's also been something I've been really pleased to see is charities pushing back on corporates. So it happened with WWF, I think 5 or 6 years ago. They had a partnership with another facilities management company, and they hadn't done anything to improve their environmental footprint. So WWF said, unless you buck up your ideas, we're cancelling the partnership. And I think charities have a really strong placement there, like where you do have those partnerships and that collaboration, you can demand a lot from your charity, from your company, if they're not pulling their weight in terms of that. So yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant and something that we should leverage more for local and smaller organizations for sure.
Yeah, and businesses are having to think of internal ways to fund these. There's not a pot of money every year that just goes, yeah, there you go and spend it. They have to think about, is there an innovation pot? How are we using our services and our products to make social impact? Because then that aligns to key business objectives. So there's the internal side of how businesses are funding it as well. But obviously we're looking here about how charities could potentially use these models. I promise I didn't know you were going to say forest bathing. All right. So when you said at the start, I scribbled it down going, no,
that is really weird, because
I've been set up.
Yeah, it's really strange, because we do run paid for stuff as well, which interestingly, I mean, I don't have endless time to market them, but they don't do as well as like getting funding for stuff. So it is interesting. But yeah, we do that too, and we want to do wellbeing stuff with corporates. We want them to come and forest bathe with us. So that's another thing that we're trying to push out.
Yeah, I think that whole offering experiences alongside doing good, or using sort of products or services to do social good, can be quite successful ways. You're bringing in pure funding then as well. You've raised that funding yourself commercially. You haven't had to bid or apply for that. You can decide how to measure it and what to do with it. So another added benefit. Yeah, there might be subscriptions or membership models that you might want to consider for small amounts of money that kind of people come on board. Again, you might even go down that route of having your own lottery or annual prize giving thing, but it's a monthly fee. These little pockets of funding that can come in, an extra £500 a month coming into a charity, so useful. So yeah, something else that might want to be on the radar. And then a couple more. Yeah, online challenges. I saw such a simple one the other day that a local football club did, the grassroots. And it was walk from our training ground, just a couple of miles, to the football ground and raise money. So pretty much all their fans, they all raised money. They had to pay money to do that walk. And they raised, a good £6,000–7,000, which is huge for a local grassroots football team. Really straightforward. How much did they have to do for that? Not a lot. Yeah, they made a few more sales. Everyone come back, made money from food and beverage. Really nice, clear, simple way. And they all organised it online, sign up, and then we'll deliver it. So that was a good one. Yeah, if you've got any assets, it could be minibus, facilities, anything like that, could they be used, hired out in some capacity? And then maybe some cause related marketing as well. So, a local business, bakery might donate 5% from this particular cake that they're doing to the local food bank. And there's that collaboration of doing it. 5% is a bit stingy. But they're making a lot of dough there in that bakery. Dad joke. Okay. Yeah, impact investing. So there are, I'd say there was a few more. You'd have to be, with impact investing, you'd have to really align yourself with social development goals and levels of impact that you can achieve. So that might be something that you're looking to plan with in the future. So then you could align yourselves with, let's say there's 3 or 4 of the sustainable development goals that you think you might focus on. The investors would have like portfolios where they'd aim for those particular groups, and then they try and look at what levels of impact you can achieve. So, I mean, I suppose it might be something that you're looking at already or moving towards. And then, yeah, merch. You know, there might be things that, you know, you might want to sell. It doesn't always have to be like hoodies, you know, it just could be more quirky stuff that, you know, you might want to sell. And again, that could be a way to, you know, just bringing that extra bit of revenue, making sure that it works financially though for you. You don't want to spend loads of money on things that you know aren't really going to sell. So just some additional ones there that might be worth considering. I know we've got to just right up to a half past. Is everyone okay for like an extra just few minutes? Is that okay? All right. And then yeah, it's just coming to that last one. So again, I want to bring Cara in, but any of you guys want to speak? I just put 5 things up about corporate collaboration. So obviously, you know, you can't speak for every company industry, but just yeah, in your experience, just sort of the points here or anything that you might want to add to, you know, what is the best collaborations?
The best collaborations I tend to find happen on that sort of local basis. So we have a local charity partnered with the local office rather than the whole company. For example, kind of similarly to what I was talking about before, Francesca, I worked for a consultancy that did a lot of kind of planning applications, architectural designs for residential spaces. What they ended up partnering with was a local hospice. And it was just because somebody had a connection to them anyway. But what it ended up allowing was when the hospice needed a revamped kitchen, they got the surveyors to come in and survey for free. And then they used their connections with the supply chain to get a kitchen unit donated for free. And it all kind of happened because that was the nature of their work. But it was only that relationship that they were able to have like individually. And so unfortunately, or fortunately, it does a lot of the time come down to having those personal connections so that when opportunities arise, you can kind of leverage them. Equally, yeah, you've got it down there. Businesses can offer their space. So if you don't have assets, but you need to, for example, host an investor meeting or a bid proposal sort of thing, if you have those local business connections, and this happened quite frequently in previous places, then suddenly you've got this very corporate, very professional looking space. I think, again, it all just kind of comes down to having that personal relationship and generally longer term kind of relationship with people. So more than a year, I think, is generally more valuable. Certainly for corporates, because a lot of them will not really know what they're doing to start off with, and you are likely not to be engaging with the social value specific people. You'll have the people who are invested in their community in that local space. So I hope that that's sort of helpful in terms of you understanding how to interact with corporates. But in terms of what you can get from us, I've not come across a business yet that doesn't have any level of kind of engagement and commitments with the community, whether that's under social value and the act, or whether that's through CSR or responsible business or what have you. There'll be something there where a business will need, if not, you know, formally to commit to these sorts of things. Just from a reputational perspective, you can't really do business these days without being invested in your community. So you can be quite demanding, I say, you know, of all sorts of different things. And yeah, especially things that we would do as bread and butter as businesses, ask for our time to help you write your bids, to do the graphic design if you want those infographics done. Like, there are people who do that day in and day out who need to use their volunteering days in all sorts of industries, and who'd rather do something like that than paint some fence somewhere, you know. So yeah, 100%, just like, yeah, leverage us and what we do and what we have as bigger businesses to meet whatever needs you have, however weird or niche or average.
Anyone else has a sort of experience? Oh, yeah, Erica.
I know we're running out of time, so I'll keep it brief. But at Christmas, I went out to an organisation in Surrey that has a great partnership with Enterprise Rent a Car. Long-lasting relationship. They use their building for networking events. But what was beautiful to watch was they have something called the Angel Tree, where all the employees, so all the different local organisations and this charity host it and do it all for them. but loads of different organisations like dementia carers, they all put an angel on the tree, and Enterprise of saying something that they require for Christmas, and then they all met up over Christmas, had a beautiful lunch and exchanged gifts, and it was just so heartwarming to kind of see. And Enterprise gets so much out of it as well, not just obviously reputation, but the individual satisfaction as well. They do a lot more together, but that was just beautiful to see.
Yeah, nice. Okay, what do I just stop sharing screen as it is? So you can have all the slides, etc. Sorry, run over there a little bit.